Hello paper crafters, I'm Sunny Sky, and today we're working on a sweet little Christmas card with the Cup of Christmas stamp set. Here are the cardstock sizes you need for today's card, so go ahead and pause the video if you want to take those down. We're using a lot of scrap pieces today. One thing I want to make sure I do near the beginning of this card, because it needs a little time to dry, is to make a little water wash with some real red ink, and this is going to go behind my little cup. I'm leaving some space over to the right where my border's going to happen and just doing a little wash here. And I'm using shimmery paper just because it's a little more sturdy than your standard Whisper White cardstock to give that a little bit of extra strength because we are putting water on the card. And then I always take my Aqua painter and rinse it out, just wipe out until there's no more color. All right, so we'll set that aside to dry. We need to die cut some images for today's card. We've got the center of our mug and some accessories. One thing I am doing is on this layer of the card, we're going to cut the mug straight out of that because we are not going to see the center of that card because our white portion will show over it. So I have already done my die cutting for us. And you can see where I've cut the center out of that card. And I've got a water wash strip that has already had some time to dry. And so now we're going to use our Stamparatus to get our little border. Because this is a photopolymer set, I'm using the foam mat that comes with the Stamparatus. And I'm going to put my strip of cardstock, my layer here, right in the corner. You can use the magnets to hold it down, but as long as you keep it in the corner, it should be secure where it is. I've added the holly image to one of the plates, ink it up, stamp it down, and then we're going to move it over not one hinge but two hinges because this is a little bit of longer image. And I did make sure that I used some of the smaller grid paper on the Stamparatus, the grid paper that you can buy specifically for that, because these two images don't take me all the way down to the edge of the card. I need to do it one more time. And when I ink this up, it's going to take me off of the card, and I really don't want to stamp on the foam part of my Stamparatus. Whenever you're using a photopolymer stamp, because it doesn't have that foam behind the red rubber, like regular rubber stamps do, you do want to have some sort of a little bit of cushion when you're stamping, just to give a little bit of give in case there are any imperfections in the image. Now we have one more image to stamp on the Stamparatus. Let me just close up this ink pad. And that is the greeting, which we are going to emboss. And let me get my embossing buddy handy here and my greeting. Because we're using the gold foil cards and envelopes, I wanted to add some gold into the rest of the card itself. So we're going to emboss the greeting in gold and then add some little gold pearls to the center of our mug. So I'm using my Versamark ink pad, invisible sticky ink, to stamp the greeting. Put that down on my cardstock. And I used that embossing buddy to get rid of any extra flakes. I don't want the gold anywhere except for where my greeting is. And you see I did not ink it up well or did not press it down well. There's a little bit missing there. So because we've used the Stamparatus, let me emboss this, because if I go back in with the ink, the powder's going to come up. Let me emboss it and then we'll come back and fix it. Okay, I've embossed that. You can see that shiny texture. I'm going to go ahead and ink this up again. Making sure that's back in the corner where it was. Stamp it down. I'm going to pay attention to the pressure near that edge. Sometimes close to the hinge of the Stamparatus, it's a little bit harder to get your ink in place where you want it. And especially with that embossing there that's sort of raised up the edge. Okay, second time around, I was able to fill that in, and you see it doesn't have a double image because of the Stamparatus. We're putting it right back exactly where we had it the first time, which is really fabulous. Okay, we're going to put a little extra adhesive on the back of this card. Because it is warped a little because of the embossing and the water wash, I want to make sure that it's sticking down really well to my card. Oh, I need the red layer first. Cherry Cobbler is the color we've got here, and I always have the colors of cardstock in the description below this video, so if I forget to say, just look down there. All right, we'll line these up. And I like to make sure it's straight before I put that final pressure on there. There we go. Okay, now we have our little focal image to do on here. I'll tell you what though, let's go ahead and do our decoration on the inside. We have our little holly leaf. Let me just do it down in this corner and up in this corner as well. And we'll do it on the envelope. Do it on the back flap of the envelope. And I'll also do it on the front, down in the corner. This is the corner that isn't having any other information, so it's safe to decorate down there. Okay, now we've got all our pieces die cut that are going to go on the front here. We are going to add a little bit of dimension to them. Okay, we've got 2 pieces for the candy cane, 2 pieces for the mug, and then we have our little sprigs of greenery. So this die is so thin and delicate. How are we going to glue that? Well, I'm going to use my silicone craft mat and just put a little bit of adhesive down on here. Just the Tombow liquid glue, a sponge, and I'm just going to dab the sponge in the glue and then dab it on the die cut. And you know, anything that you leave on that mat just peels right off when it dries. You just rub your finger on it and it curls up and comes right off. It's pretty amazing. So if you're working with something small and you're working with adhesive, that's a great way to do that. Okay, I'm going to turn this over, just press down on the back side to make sure I'm getting it adhered really well. And this is just real red on top of that cherry cobbler, so just nice subtle design there. Now we've got the same thing going with our candy canes, and I always underestimate the amount of glue that I need for this. I'm always feeling like I don't want to over glue it and then I forget to put enough, because some of the glue gets stuck up in our little sponge piece that we're using, and so you don't end up using all of it. And then this little sponge thing, if you just put that in a small airtight container, you can save it and use it again. Let me line this up, put these layers on. Might be better off doing this in the air. There we go. Okay, my candy cane. Now this is tiny and petite, and you might want to sponge that as well, but because it's going behind the mug, I'm just going to adhere it to the mug with some dimensionals. Okay, so I'm just going to sort of look at where these are being placed, my little sprigs and my candy cane, just sort of visually decide how to do that, and then flip it over on the back. Add some dimensionals, and I'll just use them to hold down those pieces. You could glue them as well, but I'm just using the dimensionals to do my gluing for me. Okay, and then just set our mug right on our little water wash. And you could skip the water wash on this card, but I thought it just added a little base for the mug to rest on. Gives it a little place to stand so it's not just floating in midair. And I felt like that added a little extra, not credibility to my card, but just a little extra oomph. And I'm going to go with some of these little tiny gold pearls. And you know, I've been using the pokey end of this tool to attach these, but someone mentioned recently that they were using the other end with the gummy adhesive, so let's try that. There we go. Sometimes the pokiness just slides them around. Yes, I like that so much better. That is a great tip. And it's just a little tacky putty there is what's on that end. That's our project for today. Thank you for joining me, and go have some fun crafting today.